What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court today, being January 1st, 2022. I am your host, Sean Murphy, and today I am joined by one of my favorite guests I've had on this podcast. He is one half of the podcast of brotherly love. He is THREECONE on Twitter and on YouTube, and he is the biggest Oklahoma City Thunder fan that I know. I am joined by Cone. Cone, what's going on, man? How you doing? Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course, man. You saying 2022 kind of blew my mind. That's terrifying. The fact that that's coming around. But yeah, I'm doing good. I appreciate the intro. Like that was kind of a sick intro. I appreciate that. Yeah. Happy to be here. Happy to talk hoops. Like I said to you, always down to talk some hoops and stuff. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. It's an honor. I mean, I absolutely love your content and everything that you do. Just love how you talk about the game. And anytime I see guys like you, I always want to hop on a mic and talk more hoops with them. So I'm absolutely glad that I have this opportunity.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Cone, if people aren't familiar with who you are, which they're way more likely to know who you are than who I am if they're tuning into this, what would you say? How did you get your start in content, and what kind of content do you make?
Yeah, so everything kind of started with NBA Twitter. I kind of fell in love with basketball in when I was 14, 15 ish. So 6-7 years ago now. And I just very quickly fell in love with it. And I wanted to talk about it so much. So in 2016, I made an NBA Twitter account and I posted, I think, one Harambe meme on it and then never touched it again since 2016.
Yeah.
So it was just sitting there. And then it was, I think it's 2019, so 2 years ago now. It was my summer of 2019. I work at this parking lot. So it's a very it's just a job where I sit there, cars come in, they park, I take money. It's very boring. So I was I'm bored and I love hoops. And so my brother and I, Ninja Bands on Twitter, I don't know if you know who he is. But him and I decided while we were working there together one day, we're like, why don't we make NBA Twitter accounts and talk about stuff? And I was like, okay, I still have this one from 2016. I deleted the one Harambe meme I posted. I was like, we'll start off fresh. And yeah, so just since then I've been on Twitter. It went crazy when quarantine rolled around. I think going into quarantine, I was at maybe 6,000 followers, and then now I'm at 53,000, I think, right now, which is ridiculous, which both says a little bit about how quickly it's grown and also how insanely long this quarantine pandemic period has been. So kind of just blew up off of some memes and stuff like that coming from there. And just kind of since then, it's been growing. This past year, pretty much about a year ago now, I made the decision to kind of try talking on YouTube. I'm a big fan of Kenny's. And just other YouTube guys who just talk about the game. And I was like, this is always something I wanted to do. It's always been a dream of mine to when I was younger, I was always oh, I'll make video game YouTube videos, and that never happened. And so just kind of the dream of being able to make content and stuff that I wanted to talk about and just talk about the game that I love. So I was like, I've got this Twitter platform, it might become, it's kind of more a potential career path if I try going down this YouTube route rather than, just posting random memes on Twitter and stuff. So I started making content and it's been super fun. I've been having a ton of fun with it. I kind of just make videos where I do this kind of series called After the Buzzer, where I'll recap NBA games from the night that happened, kind of just talk about some of the prevailing storylines. I talk about kind of just topics that are going on in the NBA, reactions to, of course, mainly Thunder stuff. As you said, a big OKC Thunder fan. And so stuff when the Thunder lose by 73 points, I'm there to post a video right afterwards. Just kind of, yeah, that was a rough video. It was a fun thumbnail to make though, because I got to make myself looking really sad. Though honestly, those are some of my favorite thumbnails to make because I think they're hilarious.
Hey, as a Pistons fan, I can identify hardcore, man, 100%.
Man, our reactions for the lottery must have been so different. My my lottery live stream when we got the 6th pick, I think I just sat there like this for for like 5 minutes. And then I know I saw like Nick's video where he like was going crazy and stuff. And yeah, so we're two very different spectrums of the lottery.
Yeah. I actually made the Pistons TikTok. Like they made like a TikTok of like all the fan reactions. And I'm like, I'm the last one at the end where I was literally screeching like a little girl. So yeah, 100%. A little different, but hey, we have not had lottery luck since like 1960 or 1970. So believe me, I know that reaction very well.
Yeah.
So
hey, that's fair, man. It's just like, like there was the whole thing, the Thunder could theoretically get like pick 1 and pick 5. That would have been like the dream, crazy ideal scenario. And you take 1 + 5 and you get pick 6. And it's just it's not quite what I expected when I tweet out. I think I tweet out like just the words picks 1 and 5, like over and over again on a tweet the day before. And everyone was like 1 + 5 = 6 later. So I somehow always managed to turn myself into a meme. That's all right.
Hey, you know what? That's the dream though. You know what I mean? Like as long as
it's content.
Yeah, exactly. Either be memed or be the meme. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
You got to know how to control it. I wish I could find that Harambe meme somewhere, but that's okay. I mean, hey, you guys got Josh Giddey though, which
man, I love Giddey. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, all things considered, you guys. I mean, with how deep that draft was, you know what I'm saying? Like I knew as long as we were going to get in that top 5, like I was like, at the end of the day, I wasn't psyching myself up. I was like, I wanted Cade Cunningham. Every fan base wanted Cade Cunningham, but it's like the thing where it's like, but whoever we get will be good. And so, yeah, when we hit number 1, that was absolutely insane. But I mean, like, when you guys hit 6, I was shocked too. But hey, you know what? Like I said, Josh Giddey, heck of a player. You guys have a pretty good young core. I'm excited to talk more Thunder later. But first, this is from Half Court. Where each and every week I sit down and talk all things NBA basketball, normally with my guy Troy. But today I got the guy Cone, so we had to hop on the mic and do this. But if you like that, be sure to subscribe to this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean Halfcourt. You can follow Cone on Twitter at 3__Cone. Be sure to like the video, share with your friends. It's on all the podcast services around the globe to your pleasure. But with that, Cone, there's so much going on in the NBA right now. It's absolutely crazy. And I think before we kind of talk about a little bit of like the landscape of the league and like kind of like what's going on with some of these teams, I think, first we got to talk about all these health and safety protocols over the past month. I looked last night and currently 36% of referees are in health and safety protocols. 7 of the 30 coaches are currently in health and safety protocols. I couldn't even find a number for the players. It's an insane number. I mean, you see guys, even these guys that are coming on these hardship contracts are getting in health and safety protocols already. I had to watch the Pistons play with the Motor City Cruise roster quite a bit, with Derek Walton Jr. being our starting point guard. So it's been COVID's been a factor for the past couple of years. We've seen guys go into COVID protocols, but nothing like this. You know what I mean? So the thing that's like really difficult for me, and I think we all kind of are sitting around wondering, is like, what kind of takeaways can you take from some of these games? Right? Because the thing that's crazy is these games right now could very well decide who's in the playoff picture and who isn't, based off of who's there and who's healthy and available. I mean, we've already had 11 games that have been postponed as well. So Cone, I just wonder from your perspective, having to make content reacting to games each night, I'm sure that's been a challenge. Like what kind of things are you looking for and taking away from some of these games we're seeing?
It's really tough because, like you said, it's like I don't like to only sometimes just like, obviously sometimes I'll talk about just the singular game, for example, but I kind of like to try and look at like, those like long moving storylines, because in the grand scheme of things, for most teams, one random game isn't going to like make or break their season at the end of the day, but kind of those, storylines that go through. But yeah, especially when we're talking about like when we look at the Western Conference, like there are like 5, 6, 7 teams that are all like right there in like, and like it could be the difference between, does a 6 seed fall to like the play-in tournament or something like down the line. And it doesn't affect me as much as a fan in terms of watching the Thunder, because I don't expect us to make the play-in tournament. Like, I don't even know that if that would be really good for us, because we want to get a solid pick.
Right.
So, but if I'm a fan of a team that's like for example, like the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are trying to make their first playoff push in a while, and like for this past week, they haven't had Cat, D'Lo, Anthony Edwards, like they've been missing their whole roster. Like, I'm sure it's really, really frustrating as a fan from that perspective. And even looking at it from the players, like Draymond Green was tweeting about how frustrated he was that like they had to play the Nuggets. The Nuggets are missing a ton of guys themselves, but he's frustrated that like they've got to play them and like games are getting postponed. And it's just, it feels kind of like we're back at the start of things, which is scary, especially for like, not even just in terms of like basketball sense, just in terms of like society. It's like, like I thought this was going to be over within like the first year, and now we're going on year 3 of this thing. So it's just, it's crazy. Like, I didn't even like the referee stat you said too. I didn't even know there were that many referees in health and safety protocols, if any. Like, I guess I would have assumed there were some, but that's not even a stat I knew. I guess the one cool thing is that some like guys who may not have gotten an opportunity are getting that chance in the NBA, which is some kind of silver lining, I guess. But it's just, it is really tough to kind of talk about these games and like find storylines. And for so many of these teams, this could be something that really like hurts them down the line. What if we get to the end of the season, you've got like for example, maybe a team like the Lakers who've been missing some depth and stuff, they have to play a play-in game again because they're missing some guys. So
we're talking about the Lakers a little bit. Believe me, we're getting there.
I figured I remember looking at the doc. I was like, yeah, it's probably good to talk about the Lakers, but it's just, it's weird, man. I don't even know what to take from some of it. There are so many guys. Like I made a video on my channel like a week or so ago where I had my brother create a list of 15 replacement players, and I was trying to guess where they play at this point, because they've been signed so fast that it's so hard to keep up with people. And now the Thunder, for the first like up until like a couple days ago, we didn't have a single person health and safety protocol since the thing started. And now like half our roster and our head coach are all in health and safety protocols. So it kind of just hits fast. Like you could be on like, we were on like a 3-game win streak where I think we were like 3-1 in our last 4, and then half the team's out with protocols now. So
yeah, it's insane, man. Like so like as a Pistons fan, we had avoided it for quite a bit. And then all of a sudden we play the Knicks one night, which I was like, all right, here we go. Because the Knicks is kind of like, they were like one of those franchises that was hit pretty hard. And then all of a sudden, boom, literally in like one night, it was Cade, Killian, Isaiah Stewart, like everybody. It was just gone. Health and safety protocols. And the list just seems to keep getting longer. And, to your point, it's kind of tough because, on one hand, I think the NBA has kind of been the example of how leagues address this, right? Or how leagues are going about handling COVID and stuff. And, like the bubble was, as much of an accomplishment as it was last season, the fact that wasn't as affected by COVID with everything, like outside of like a couple of examples. Like I remember the Wizards were hit really hard at one point last year. I remember the Celtics were hit pretty hard last year. For the most part, a lot of teams kind of got through that season without being affected, which is kind of remarkable. But now, I mean, kind of to your point, with everything going on with this new variant we're dealing with, obviously don't want to get too much into just talking COVID, because I mean, that's just all of our day-to-day lives. This is supposed to be a fun podcast, but I mean, I think it's just the thing of, you're looking at, I mean, you're talking about guys that are being able to make comebacks. It's been cool to see like Mario Chalmers. He just got signed to a 10-day hardship deal to go back with the Heat.
I love that. that he's back on the Heat. Did you see that Chris Bosh tweet out telling the Heat that he's in shape?
No, that's so cool. And we got J.R. Smith doing the same thing. Say, hey, I'm available.
Yeah, man. LeBron's got a month to get himself traded to Miami. Get Dwayne Wade out of retirement. Shane Battier, get things going again.
I saw a meme where someone said the NBA in 1 week, and it was Dwayne Wade with Common in that one basketball movie he did where he was on the Nets. It was like, yep, that's not far off. I actually. One cool thing. So a couple weeks ago, I actually, so Isaiah Thomas, he made his comeback to the NBA, but before that, he played one game in the G League, and he actually played for the Grand Rapids Gold, and I live in Grand Rapids. So, I went to that game and I got to go see Isaiah Thomas play. I actually met him, watched him score 42 points
Yeah, he went off in that game.
Yeah, he went off. And Lance Stevenson was also on the Grand Rapids Gold. Jason Terry's their head coach. So like it was cool to see like a lot of those guys, but just to see like, like I was like, man, excited to see you like start your journey back to the league. I didn't know that meant 24 hours later.
You know what I mean? Literally the next day he was on the Lakers, which is crazy.
Yeah, like he was literally sitting at home on a Saturday, goes to Grand Rapids on a Tuesday, playing in Minnesota in an NBA game on Thursday because they needed him that badly. It's just absolutely insane. And I mean, like even like Joe Johnson with the Celtics going back to the team that originally drafted him has been really cool. But now it seems like with with the shift in protocols, like now like they only have to be in quarantine for 5 days, I think.
Yeah.
So hopefully that means it seems like this past week we've been seeing teams kind of getting healthier. Like the Bulls have all their guys back, which that was kind of the first team to really hit this wave of all these guys being out. But I mean, whenever you see guys coming back, there's also other guys going back into protocols too, right? I mean, that's just the way that it goes. So yeah, it's going to be absolutely interesting to see. I mean, even now we have Kyrie Irving out of protocols after coming back that one day. What do you think of Kyrie being the part-time player, by the way? How do you think that's going to work?
I don't know. That's such a imagine going back to like 2016 and telling like NBA fans after Kyrie Irving just hit the shot, say like, yeah, he's now a part-time point guard on the Nets in 2021. They'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? It's just such a weird situation, man. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. And it's going to be kind of fun from a perspective of like people are going to be like, oh, we have to play the Nets tonight. All right. Are we on the road or at home? So do we have to game plan for Kyrie Irving or not? It's such a weird scenario that it took so many different weird things happening for this to happen. And I don't know if it's going to be a train wreck. I don't know if it's going to work well. Either way, I'm super excited to see how it does go.
I mean, there's no in between, right? I mean, it's either going to be a train wreck or it's going to work out absolutely great, right? I mean, with Kyrie, there's really no in between, right? I mean, that's just who he is. I was listening to some podcasts and I've heard some interesting like theories that the reason why they're bringing him back is possibly so that they could try and get him to get his trade value up for a team, say like the Dallas Mavericks, who are in Texas and don't have these harsh restrictions that the city of New York has. So obviously it'd be pretty interesting to see if Kyrie Irving is a chip come the trade deadline, but at the same time, that would
be crazy. He comes back as a part-time point guard, plays like 10 road games, and then gets dealt. That would be. Man, that would just be like another crazy twist on this whole big three Nets era has been so weird. It's been because they're a team that everyone looked at. They're like, yeah, they're just going to dominate. And then it's been like, here's this injury. Oh, here's Kyrie with this whole thing. Like even before they had James Harden, it was like, oh my God, they traded for James Harden. There's just been so much with this team.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have James Harden coming back this season and obviously being a shell of himself towards the beginning. Obviously he's looking much more like the James Harden old as the season goes on. He put up 40 on Christmas Day. He's just that kind of guy that, he has to, play himself into shape a little bit because, he likes to enjoy his summers, which, hey, I would want to enjoy my summer too. Maybe
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Maybe I wouldn't enjoy my summer the way he does, cause he's crazy. But I mean, hey, you know what? All the power to you, James. But yeah, absolutely. So I think that's going to definitely be a team to keep an eye out for. And, hopefully as January goes on, hopefully as, the weather gets a little warmer at some point, maybe, we can see the game get a little more calm. Hopefully we don't see a postponement of the season. I think, if the NBA was going to do it, I think they would have done it already.
Yeah.
Personally,
I've had some people ask me like, do you think they're going to cancel the season? I was like, did you like the month we just went through? If there was any chance they were going to cancel things for a little bit, it would have already happened. So I don't see it happening. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. If the league's willing to let guys like guys in their late 30s, early 40s, hop right back in and say, yep, let's do it. They're not canceling the league.
They were like forcing the Heat. They're like, the Heat were out of G League players. They're like, okay, so sign more. Like, if if we've gotten past that part, that they were even having them like take players from like the Spurs G League team. They're like, yeah, just borrow a couple of those guys for the game. You'll be fine. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and all this was happening like during the G League showcase too. It's like these guys were like supposed to show up and like, hey, we want to impress these NBA scouts, but like they don't even have enough time. They're like, hey, we didn't even get to see you play. Come on the roster, let's go.
Bro, I was pissed. DJ Wilson was carrying us. We made it to the G League showcase final, and then the Bucks, or not the Bucks, who signed him? I can't remember who signed him. Someone took him from us. I can't remember who's. Raptors maybe. I think it was the Raptors.
Oh, I'm looking up. Yep, he is. He is on the Raptors, and it looks like he's impressing too. So it looks like he might actually. There's talks he might stay. So
man, he was carrying us in the G League showcase, and we made the championship. And then the Raptors took him from us the day of the championship, and we lost. I am still upset about it. That was my NBA Finals.
Yeah, we have to find our finals wherever they are, man. I remember us Pistons fans, like we were treating the summer league like they were the NBA finals last year. Like we all were expecting to go and win the summer league title. And then we very much didn't, but that's fine. We don't got to talk about that, but oh man. But speaking of teams that have finals aspirations of some form. The Lakers, I actually haven't talked about the Lakers very much on my podcast, to be honest. I've kind of refrained because, you know, the thing with the Lakers is always, or the thing with the LeBron team, it's always, okay, the first part of the season, they struggle. People go, whoa, we're freaking out. This team might not be very good. And then all of a sudden come this time this year, they're like in the first in the standings and they're doing just fine. However, obviously, that is not the case, as currently the Lakers are hovering around 500 and are in the same part of the standings as the Minnesota Timberwolves, the San Antonio Spurs, and have a worse record currently than the Los Angeles Clippers, you know, the team that's missing Kawhi Leonard and now Paul George for a significant part of the season. So, Cone, I want to ask you, man, I mean, first of all, I know you've watched a good amount of this team. I mean, it's kind of hard not to, right?
Yeah.
What do you think this team, like, is there anything this team can do to salvage anything this season? Because they don't really have many tradable pieces. They really don't.
Yeah. It's tough because their main guys, Taylon, Horton, Tucker, and he's been like, all right, like at times this season, he's been very hit or miss, but he's like their young asset. I don't think there's any chance he's still on this team by the deadline because they have to move him to make things better. But I think that like you said, with the LeBron James team, I'm never going to count LeBron James out. He's just too good, especially with the way that he's playing right now, like second in scoring, and he just turned 37 is ridiculous.
Right.
He's kind of like, he's putting that team on his back, but there are holes in that roster, and they're just really hard to ignore, especially when you've got such great like basketball teams in Golden State and Phoenix at the top of the West. It's kind of an experiment between what's better, having some because like the Suns, I would say probably don't have a superstar. If I'm talking like superstars, like top 10 or so player, they don't have that in Devin Booker or Chris Paul, but those guys are both phenomenal players, and they've got all this incredible supporting cast, and it's working out great for them. And then you've got the Lakers, who have 3 really big name stars and a bunch of role players that don't fit super well, and it's kind of falling apart. So it's tough to say that they're gonna, like, I always want to just be like, okay, yeah, LeBron James is going to turn it around. And of course they have Russell Westbrook, who's my favorite basketball player of all time.
Right.
So I want to see him turn it around, but they're just not good. Like they're they're all right at times. Of course, it is going to help when they get Anthony Davis back. And I do think that there is potential there. I don't quite know how they find it, because you've definitely got to get shooting around them. You could trade Taylon, Horton, Tucker, but you don't really have many other contracts outside of that. Like they made a move today trading Rondo for Denzel Valentine, and like that's the most whatever move ever. So it doesn't really do much I don't even think it does much for the Cavs. Like Rondo is like 35 and he's not very good anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it gets them at least a competent playmaker to get the ball to Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, right? I mean, that's about it.
And then Denzel Valentine, like doesn't really do anything for the Lakers. It's just it's a weird first trade to be made of this season, but I don't know. Like, I think a big key to it is, can Anthony Davis actually hit jumpers? Because before the season, I made a video talking about how Anthony Davis was going to dominate this season because I looked at it. Yeah, I know. Look at me cursing them. But I made this video and I talked about how I was like, it could work because Russ is such a good attacker of the basket. And I thought pick and rolls with him and AD could work super well because AD can either pop or he can roll to the basket. And with how fast Russ is and just how athletic AD is, like, it's going to be really hard to stop. You've got to make a split second decision. And then Anthony Davis decided to turn into one of the worst jump shooters of all time. And that's like completely fallen off a cliff. So I do think there's still going to be a lot of growing pains. I mean, like, if you get, like, when you get into the playoffs with LeBron James on your team and even Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook, who maybe aren't the players that they have been, but they're still talented guys. I don't want to count out this team at all, but like, at this point, I think they'll win in the first round. Like, you have LeBron James, you're probably not going to lose in the first round unless it's last year. But I don't know. Like, beyond that, I don't see this team beating the Suns. I don't see them beating the Warriors. I don't see them being the Jazz. Like, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't look good over there.
No, I mean, and I think to your point, I mean, I didn't realize, like, I knew Anthony Davis was struggling shooting this year. I didn't realize he was shooting 17% from three.
Yeah. And like one of the worst mid-range shooters, I think, based on like his number of attempts, one of the worst mid-range shooters of all time so far this year.
Yeah. And then you have Taylon Horton Tucker, who has taken on a bit more of a role, and he's only shooting 22% as well. So, I mean, I personally, I never saw Taylon Horton Tucker as this future star that like people on Twitter proclaimed him to be. I mean, like, over time was like, they have their fourth star right there. He's about to bloom. And, obviously look at that tweet is aging so well. I think, but I think, I think to your point, I think this season can only go as far as a guy like Anthony Davis can take them. Right. I mean, I think what LeBron was kind of hoping for, and I think what everyone was hoping for, was that towards the end of LeBron's tenure in LA, that we would see kind of the passing of the torch. We would see LeBron kind of play second fiddle. We'd see Anthony Davis become that guy that we've kind of just been waiting for him to be. Right. I mean, this is year 10 now in the league. And so, he's been a star caliber player. He's shown flashes of being a top 5 player in the world. I mean, I think everyone would say that bubble Anthony Davis is the best version of Anthony Davis we've seen. Right.
Yeah.
So now just to see, I don't know if it's a conditioning thing. I don't know if it's just the way that he plays the game. I don't know if just that composition of that roster just really doesn't work, because I admire Russell Westbrook. I love his game. The second I saw that trade, I literally said, that's a terrible trade. Not because of not to have anything to do with Russell Westbrook, just LeBron needs guys that can shoot the three and play well off the ball. And those are the two weakest parts of Russell Westbrook's game.
Yeah. Right? One of the craziest things to me still is them letting go of Alex Caruso.
Yes.
Like, I hated that for them when it happened, and I hated it more when I found out from that interview he did where he talked about how, like, the Bulls gave him their offer. He went back to Lakers and said, "Will you do this?" And they said no. He said, "Will you do it for a little bit more? I'm willing to come back in a little bit of a discount." And they said no again. And it's like he's the perfect player to put next to like LeBron, and you just like let him it's bad.
Yeah. I almost wonder, like, I've been thinking about this for quite a bit. It seems to me like remember after the bubble, they go out and get Dennis Schroeder, they get Marc Gasol, they shake up that roster that won the championship so drastically. It almost feels like they were trying to fix what wasn't broken. And it seems like they just haven't been the same Lakers team since that. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with that. Like, honestly, yeah. Thinking back on it now, like it was weird because in the offseason there were all these trades like, or people like, all right, like when are the Lakers going to trade Kuzma? Like when are they going to, like, what are they going to do? And it was kind of like, why are they making these moves?
Yeah.
Because this was obviously like, this was before like anyone even knew like the Suns were going to be really good. So it's not like they traded for Chris Paul and everyone was like, oh my God, they've got to get better. Because most people thought the Suns were like a fringe playoff team to start off.
Yeah. People were saying that was a play-in team. Like they could possibly be a play-in team.
Like, I remember I will never forgive some people on Twitter because I spent all summer, because I knew Chris Paul was getting traded. I spent all summer campaigning, being like, here is why your favorite team should want Chris Paul on their roster. And so many people were like, nah, we don't want him. Like there was like Bucks fans, like Sixers fans. My brother's a Sixers fan. And he's still always like, what if we traded for Chris Paul? And like, I told them Chris Paul was that guy. And
dude, people did not pay attention because
they didn't.
Because his Thunder season was incredible.
I still think that might be, it's also kind of recency bias. And because like in a large part, because it was my first year, like actually on like Twitter with this Thunder, I still think that Thunder team might be my favorite of all time.
Yeah.
Like it was just such a fun season.
Yeah. And that's fair because people counted that team out. Like it was Chris Paul was just going to play until he was just going to go play, and he was just going to wait until he got traded to a contender. And it was just going to be the nice story that he's back in Oklahoma City after playing there towards the beginning of his career after Hurricane Katrina and everything. But then no, they were tough. They were defensively stout and disciplined. I mean, they scored the ball really well. They gave they gave fits in the playoffs when they were in. And that team was so fun, dude. And it was it was people truly just thought that Chris Paul was the problem in Houston, and he wasn't. Like he very much wasn't, and it shows.
Nah.
Like, yeah,
he was so good that season. I always think to myself, what if Dort had pump faked that three, Harden flies by and he hits that, or even just if he drove to the basket. Oh, if Dort hit that game winner, I think I might have gotten banned off Twitter that night from the things I would have tweeted after. So maybe it's a good thing that didn't happen. I wouldn't be here, but yeah. So just going back to the Lakers, like they just like, I thought the Dennis Schroeder trade was a good one because Schroeder was incredible for us in his season or that season. I still think he was robbed of Sixth Man of the Year. I will never get over that. But he was so good. And I like some of the moves that they made. I think they re-signed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in that off season. And I thought they made some good moves. And then it kind of fell apart. There was that LeBron injury to his ankle that kind of hurt them too. And it just feels like after the bubble, they were like, all right, like they did like the exact opposite. Like the Suns made it to the finals this past year and didn't even win it. And they're like, okay, we're just going to kind of run this back. Like we're just like, we are good. We know we're good. We'll kind of just do this again. And the Lakers were like, okay, we won the finals, but we need to do more. And now they've no depth. And they're mediocre. So
and the veterans that they signed, like obviously there's a lot of names on there that we recognize, right? I mean, like there's guys like Trevor Ariza, there's guys like Wayne Ellington, a lot of like guys that like historically in their career have been defensively stout, can shoot the ball. So like in theory, I understood why there was like this thought of, okay, well, they're old, but they're veterans. You know what I'm saying? Like that's going to be a good thing for this team. But I think if anything, they've just looked slow. They've just kind of struggled against some of these more athletic teams, and they're going to struggle against a lot of these bigger teams too in the West. I think. I think the biggest thing with Anthony Davis is his willingness to play the five. And every year it's like, no, I'm going to play the five. I'm going to play the five. And then
at the beginning of the year, he was like, okay, I'm ready. This is the year I'm going to do it. And I think he started like 3 games at the five or something like that.
It's always like, I'm going to play the five. I'm ready to bang down in the post. Let's do it. Mid-range shots, 3-point shots.
It's like the Kristaps Porzingis syndrome where he's like a 7-3 shooting guard.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's because, people forget, like, Anthony Davis, his natural position was point guard. Like, he was a point guard before he was a big man in high school, when he just had that huge growth spurt. And so I just, part of me just thinks his game just never adjusted with that height growth. You know what I mean? Obviously he could do amazing things out of the post. He's incredible. He's a great athlete. I'm not, by no means discounting him as a player, because he is a great player, and he is that good to where he can change the fate of this team, it feels like. But I think if we're just going off of what we've seen so far, I think this season's going to look very similar to last season towards the end. And I think it's safe to say that going forward, this could be getting pretty rough for them.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a big lay GM trade deadline. I don't think there are going to be many names on that roster that are the same when, like, after that Grizzlies loss, especially when LeBron's just standing there and he's like, I can't believe we just lost this game. Like, he was like looking over at the bench, and to me, he's looking over there like, all right, which one of you is going to still be here after the trade deadline? So I think it's good. I think it's going to be a fun one. I'm excited about it in terms of, like, making content, getting to talk about the Lakers and stuff. Oh, it's going to be great.
Oh, hey, they're feeding us, man. Like, they're putting food on the table for us.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm about to make a Lakers video later today. It's going to be phenomenal. Yeah. Can't wait.
You're just going to keep refreshing that YouTube Studio app, just like watching.
Exactly, man. Hey, Lakers get clicks.
Yeah, they definitely do. That is for sure. But even I saw today that they're looking at possibly some off-ball guards like Marcus Smart, Norman Powell, Derek White are some names that have been thrown out there. Good luck trading for Marcus Smart from the Celtics. I'm not sure if that's a phone call that the Boston Celtics front office will want to take, but I mean, Brad Stevens, you never know. But but that's kind of a good segue into kind of like the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about is I know you kind of watch a lot of basketball. I watch a lot of basketball. What's kind of been when you go on League Pass, like, what have been like some of your favorite teams to watch this year?
This is a good question. The Cavs have easily been one of my favorites. I've become like a proxy Cleveland Cavaliers fan, mainly because Evan Mobley was my favorite prospect coming into the draft. I was preaching to people about Evan Mobley. I was like, this guy's going to be a superstar. He's like Anthony Davis 2.0, which is funny because we were just talking about how he's fallen off a cliff. But I was like, bubble Anthony Davis, we'll go with that. But like,
not falling off a cliff, just not as good as he has been. Like,
exactly. He'll find his rhythm. But just like, I was like singing Mobley's praises, and he said before the draft that growing up he's been an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and I was like, oh my God, somehow please get us the pick to take, because I knew the Rockets were going to take Jalen Green. I was like, I don't even need the first overall pick. I just need number 3 for Evan Mobley. We've got a hole at center. It would be perfect. And then I don't know if you remember this, but we tied with the Cavs in record because Poku decides to drop 30 against the Clippers on the last game of the season.
That's right.
And we tied with them, and we beat them in the coin toss to get higher odds than them. And that cost us Evan Mobley at the end of it. Like, obviously I love Josh Giddey. The dream would have been to get Giddey and Mobley with the Rockets pick kind of working out, but like, damn, man, Mobley's so good. And just watching them, like, because before the season, I was like, someone told me, like, I think the Cavs are gonna make the playoffs. I was like, there's no way in hell. Like, I just don't see it. And then even without Sexton, Garland's an all-star caliber guy. Allen's looking like an all-star. Mobley, hell, you could make a case for him being an all-star and even like all defensive team.
Oh, definitely all defensive. Like he's
been like the best defensive rookie I've seen since, I don't know.
Yeah. In our lifetime. Like,
it's been crazy. And he hit that like up and under like scoop layup that was so good that Kuzma gave him a high five after it, which was hilarious. Like, the Cavs are just so much fun to watch. I love watching that Cavs team. So they've probably been up there.
That layup was so filthy. Absolutely. He just, his ability, like, he just has guard-like abilities with the ball in his hands, but also just that defensive instinct, to your point, and just everything that he can do, just an absolute freak of nature. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't know much about Evan Mobley going in. I kind of saw him as kind of a either boom or bust kind of guy, where either he could come in and just absolutely dominate, kind of like what he's doing right now, or,
Yeah.
he could struggle to adapt. But listen, man, he has been nothing short of spectacular. That's definitely one. I've been loving watching the Bulls quite a bit this year
That's
too.
another really good one. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, just with that big three of Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan having a career resurgence year where
it's so good.
Unreal, man. Unreal. Just the kind of year that he's had. The best player on that Bulls team right now, arguably over Zach LaVine, even, which is crazy.
After all the takes that like it was a horrible like signing and stuff,
Yeah.
and which never really made sense to me because I was like, you've got great shooters on this team, even if DeRozan can't shoot, like it makes sense. It's like people, because he could have been an all-star last year with the Spurs, like he was doing really well, and it was like people like didn't watch him, I guess.
Yep. Well, people don't watch small market teams. People don't watch people don't watch the Thunder or the Pistons or the Spurs. Like
I watch it enough for the rest of them. I'm holding down the fort.
You and me both, Cohen. You and me both.
Yeah, bro. It's just like watching DeRozan play. So one of my favorite things is watching guys take over in the clutch and just like those fourth quarter minutes, like a big part of the reason why I love that Thunder team back in 2019, 2020 was because Chris Paul would just take over every time. And it's just so fun to watch. Those are like my favorite moments in games. And so DeMar DeRozan will just go in. I know he's shooting a mid-range jumper. You know it. The whole crowd knows it. The opposing team knows it. And it doesn't matter because he's just going to pull up right in front of you and hit the most ridiculous contested mid-range jumper. And you can't stop it. And that I would love to see that Bulls team like do big things out in the Eastern Conference. I think that would be awesome. I would love to see them go up against like a Nets or something. Like, do they beat them? Probably not. They've got KD, Harden, Kyrie for half the games. If it goes 7, they'll have, depending on, how home court advantage works, which honestly, at this point, the Nets, if they are going to bring Kyrie back, should probably start tanking to get a road court advantage. But I don't know. I would just love to see, I can't wait to see them in the playoffs. I think that's going to be a crazy atmosphere in Chicago, and just to see DeRozan, because now all the people are like, oh, well, can he do it in the playoffs? And which is always dumb. So I hope he goes crazy.
Yeah, same here. That's a 4D chess move. I didn't even think about that. Like having if Kyrie Irving's still on your team come playoff time, do you want to be the road team? That's actually a really interesting point that I didn't think about.
The guys start tanking for the 8th seed, make it in through the play-in tournament, have technically home court advantage the whole time through.
Oh my gosh, that's insane, man. And that's even if Kyrie Irving's on their team come that time, we will fight. That is just such a weird situation. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I think, and that's been like one of the things I've been thinking in the back of my head about this Bulls team is what's their ceiling? You know what I mean? Because I think that ultimately they do have enough talent to where you could make the case that they could be an Eastern Conference Finals team. Like say if obviously that would require like Brooklyn and Milwaukee having to meet before the second or before the conference finals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, the East goes through those two teams right now. And it's tough to say that any team's better than Milwaukee at this moment, because that's just another team like ever since they got their guys back from their kind of COVID spill at the beginning of the year. I still think that they haven't lost a game that Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday play together on the court.
I think they lost they had that weird game against the Heat where the Heat were kind of beat up. I think that might be, or at least that's the only one that comes to mind. But they've been.
Yeah, the fact it's that rare is insane. And that team is just, I mean, listen, they're the champions. Giannis is probably still, him or Kevin Durant's the best player in the world right now. I mean, to me, flip a coin, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're both insane. But yeah, that it's tough to see anyone going through the Bucks in that conference right now. But I think, listen, man, the Bulls, don't count them out, because you have two guys in DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine who both can take over games. And then I think you're seeing Lonzo Ball, really his game's getting unlocked in Chicago too.
It's such a good spot for him with all the shooters you've got. Like he's not relied on to be that much of a scorer. He can kind of just spot up, and like his improvement has been awesome to see from like 3-point range from when he started his career with the whole like shot like that type thing. Just his improvements. And the crazy part is like Vucevic hasn't even been like Vucevic yet.
Yeah.
Like he's been like super inconsistent over the course of this season. As of recently, he's kind of finding it a little bit more. And if that stays consistent, like the Bulls can reach like maybe even another level to it. So
yeah, for sure. I think his game is probably the one that's like had to suffer the most for the good of the team, because just the way that he plays, it's, the offense would always just be tailored through him, right? I mean, that's just how you would tailor to his game. But I mean, that you can't do that when you have guys like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan on the court. You gotta find the way to get them the ball, and it's got to run through them, right? But I mean, it's amazing what happens when, because it also just feels like they're just letting him be Lonzo Ball, to your point. Like in the Lakers, like it was like, Magic Johnson was like, hey, your name is going to be up in those rafters. Like you got to bring Showtime back to Los Angeles now. And now, he's in a place where that pressure isn't on him to be like the number one guy. He can just be himself. And I think there's just something to be said about that fit. And, he's, listen, anyone that was saying that Lonzo Ball was a bust, I mean, it's just the same thing of we're keeping receipts on Twitter, y'all. I mean, it's out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. But on the flip side of that, with every team that's been fun to watch, there's also, I think there's been a lot of teams that have been really disappointing this year too.
Yeah.
And for me, I know there's certainly names that have come to mind. What are some teams on your end that you've been kind of surprised by, or have not been what you thought they were going to be?
I mean, obviously, like we talked about the Lakers, but I won't talk about them anymore.
Yeah.
One team that's been kind of disappointing, I mean, they've dealt with a lot of injuries and stuff, are the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
It's just like they didn't go out and like I think most people realize one of their biggest issues with that was that they needed another facilitator alongside Luka Doncic, and they just didn't get that. And just like Reggie Bullock, they brought in for a decent bit of money. He's shooting like 27% from three. Tim Hardaway Jr. has really struggled from three this year. It's just been super inconsistent. And I thought they were a team that in kind of like a super like a Western Conference where like the Nuggets are really beat up, the Clippers don't have Kawhi Leonard. I just thought the Mavericks could be a team that could make a big jump to like maybe like a third, fourth seed in the Western Conference. And they just haven't been that. Like I said, they've had a lot of injuries and they've missed guys, of course, like every team has due to protocols. So we haven't really seen them consistently at full strength. But even when I have, like, I feel like they just haven't been what I was hoping to see. Like Luka's obviously still amazing. He's Luka Doncic, but just the way that it feels like they're super, like they can get, there was one game, I forget who they were playing. I think it was, I want to say it was the Boston Celtics. But like it was the end of the game and they were like up by a bit. And I just like the last 2 minutes of the game, they just spent bricking corner threes from either side over and over and over and over. Like they would get wide open looks, brick, wide open brick, and just over. And I was like, how are you missing this many wide open corner threes? And it was guys like I mentioned, like Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock, like Dorian Finney-Smith, who is a good 3-point shooter, but guys who you expect to hit those, just not hitting those shots. And so they're just, more so maybe even than disappointing, they're just really frustrating to watch. And I thought they were going to be a really fun watch this year. So
I mean, like, talk like speaking on Luka Doncic too, he's still been Luka Doncic, but I mean, the elephant in the room, he's not in shape. He doesn't look great. He looks banged up. He kind of's hobbling on the court actively whenever he's out there. Obviously he played so much basketball this past year. I mean, just between the national team, like putting them on their back, bringing them to, I believe they got a bronze medal, right? I think so. So brought that team to a bronze medal, but on top of that, just bringing them, just playing as much as he has and coming into the season, he's another one of those guys where I think, as stars kind of are growing, I think it's the lesson of like, seeing guys like, it's talked about all the time. LeBron James spends $1 million a year on his body. Chris Paul, he's changed the way that he's approached his body, and he's kind of been an Iron Man ever since. He used to deal with a lot of injuries, but now he's been kind of more available. I think, certain guys, I mean, Zion Williamson's kind of been the story where he was supposed to start the season with this foot injury and be fine. It's 2022 and we have not seen him yet this year. I think, Luka's just one of those guys where I think Not saying that he's not putting in the effort or putting in the work in the summer. And, I'm not making that accusation at all, but it's just, I think for this Dallas Mavericks team, I think figuring out who needs to be that guy alongside him, because, Kristaps Porzingis, so far, it's not been a successful experiment. But on top of that, I think it's just got to be what do we do to bring Luka in and be in the best shape possible, right?
Yeah.
Just because, let's be honest, he's not looked like that. He's looked great. He's still Luka. He can still out, even with all this, he's going out and averaging 26 a game. He can still just absolutely punk you, and it's never with his athleticism. But we even saw like Jokic, once he got in shape, his game went to a different level. So
yeah,
I almost wonder if Luka's would do the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. I want to see more Luka. He's one of my favorite young players. So I want to see the Mavericks do well. I want to see him. It's going to be really funny to see how him and the Clippers end up facing off again, because I think that's become kind of his purgatory. He can't face any other team until he beats the Clippers.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I thought they would be a little bit better.
Same.
Yeah, in that Western Conference that looks kind of open, especially like another, I guess, disappointing team you can kind of look at as of course the Blazers, who just insist on running it back nonstop every single season, even though it doesn't work. And they're like, okay, we'll try it again. Like,
yep.
Like they're like, yeah, firing Terry Stotts is going to fix our inability to play defense, and our inconsistencies. Yeah, that'll be fine. No. After losing to a Jamal Murray-less like Nuggets team in like such quick like it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
They've got it. I've been campaigning for so long for them to make, even if it's not the Dame trade, just do something, please. Yeah. Like, you've got to try something. You can't just keep doing this.
Yeah. And it's like, listen, we all love CJ McCollum. We all wanted that team to be successful, but it's just one of those things where, to your point, if it's just not working, it's not going to work, especially when for a fact that at this team's max, it's not a finals team. They got to the Western Conference Finals and they got blown out in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even close. So, it's just one of those things where, to your point, it's just so frustrating because I love Dame. I love CJ. I love a lot of these guys on this roster. I love Chauncey Billups. I wanted to see him succeed and be the coach of the future for this team to lead them to success. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where, all right, guys, it's not working. What are we going to do about it? And, that a trade that's been thrown around so much is the Ben Simmons, CJ McCollum trade. But Philly's still insisting that they would want Damian Lillard for Ben Simmons, which, okay. But it's just one of those things where, to your point, that's just another team where it's just like, come on, guys, let's do something. And then one more, you actually made a video on this a few days ago, the Boston Celtics. I am a big fan of Jason Tatum. I'm a big fan of Jaylen Brown. It's not a secret that the past couple of years they've just regressed, like as a team, not those guys individually, but just as a team, they've regressed. And they are currently 10th in the Eastern Conference. They're 3 games under 500, kind of the same thing where a coaching change was supposed to bring that intensity, that commitment to the defensive end, which they have a top 10 defensive rating, but at the same time, they, I don't know if they just need to break up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. But it's not been good.
Nah, I've been a long time, and it's funny that we're talking about this right now. I just checked the Celtics and Suns are playing right now. The Celtics are up 30 on the Suns right before halftime, which is hilarious that that's right now what we're talking about. So,
well, hey, never mind. I guess they don't need to be broken.
Yeah, never mind. They've got like no Jason Tatum or anything too.
You guys are perfect. Yeah, they got Devin Booker and Chris Paul out there. Devin Booker is shooting 3 of 13. That explains it.
Yeah, that helps a little bit. But yeah, I guess outside of this game, it's just been like, I've long time been a defender of the duo of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, because I also, like you, I'm a big fan of those guys. Jaylen Brown has been one of my favorite players, period, in the NBA. I just love his on-court play and his like social activism. And he just seems like such a smart, awesome dude.
Yeah.
So I've been a big fan of his for a bit, and just, I don't know. Like, it feels like I said in my video, I feel like at this point, the only one who should probably be off the table is Jason Tatum. I'm not saying to go out and like deal Jaylen Brown for whatever package comes up, but if something good comes up, if some really good player comes up, like say somehow Damian Lillard becomes available at the deadline, you call up Portland immediately and go, here's Jaylen Brown, here's like some picks or whatever. We want Damian Lillard on this team. Like, you've got to try something, I think, at some point. And I want to see the two of them succeed because I think they can. They made it to an Eastern Conference Finals in Tatum's rookie season. And they're so much better than that now. To me, it kind of just feels like it feels like they're almost like a sinking ship, and they've just been putting like random like patches on a different, like signing Schroeder. Like, okay, that was fine, but it really didn't help them that much. Like the Al Horford trade, like Horford is a good player, and I do think he is helpful to this team, but it didn't really help them that much in the end, or hasn't helped them reach their ultimate goal. So I feel like they're just kind of trying to patch things up, and I feel like it's going to keep being that way until they make a big move. I don't know what that move is. I don't know whether you trade. Part of me feels like maybe it's time to try and package like Marcus Smart, who I think is a player that a winning team would like. You package him, maybe like another young guy and Robert Williams or something like that, which I love Rob. So it would Celtics, if you're trying to get a team to, facilitate a 3-team trade, want to send to OKC, sounds good. But I don't know what it is. The Celtics, they don't really have a clear direction because they can't go into a rebuild. They've got these two young stars, but at the same time, it feels like they've absolutely capped out, and they're just, like you said, now kind of regressing as a team. So you don't really know where they go.
Well, and even then, like they've been accumulating assets for so long, and it always just kind of felt like they were waiting for LeBron to leave the Eastern Conference. Well, hey, now he's gone. And since then, it was like, it was very clear they wanted Anthony Davis. It's very clear that they had interest in certain stars, but like either they're just not available or they just have no desire to come to Boston, whatever it is. It just seems like they've just been still accumulating assets or just holding on to what they have. And to your point, it just seems like the team around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, like that group of guys has just gotten so much worse over the years. Cause I mean, at one point they had Marcus Morris, who's a bucket getter. They had some other solid role players. I mean, at one point, they had Kyrie Irving that was there. And then it was, Kemba Walker's here now. That's a solid replacement. That deal didn't work at all. And so now you're just in this place where you're looking for, I don't know if they're just still looking for that third guy. I don't know if they're just looking for that true star, but I think, I think this year, if they're not going to make the playoffs this year, if they're going to be a play-in team this year, that's just not good enough. And, I listen, I still don't know how Brad Stevens got fired from being the head coach, but got a promotion in the process. That's a whole other conversation for a different day. But I think it's just, I think it's just symbolic of what the heck is going on in Boston right now, because I think that's just, it's a crapshoot, for a lack of better terms.
It's been weird though. I'm excited to see what Brad Stevens does for his first trade deadline as a general manager.
Yeah, same here. I'm interested to see what his plan is. How different it is from Danny Ainge, which, by the way, the fact that the Utah Jazz got Danny Ainge in their front office now too. I mean, holy crap. You know what I'm saying? They're looking good in Utah. That's all I'm saying. But speaking of teams that are accumulating assets, I did want to real quick touch on your Thunder. I mean, just to name a few, you guys got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is probably still one of the more overlooked point guards in the league. Some of the stuff he's doing, I watched him absolutely take over a game against the Pistons. That the game after you guys lost by 73 points, you then went out and Shai was like, "Whoa, we're not losing again," and he went out and got buckets against.
We needed
Detroit.
That one.
Yeah, that I knew that was going to be a rough night for us. But then you got Josh Giddey, who's been absolutely fantastic. You guys got Lou Dort, who's absolutely awesome. I mean, just to name a few, but I think my question would be, to those that aren't paying attention, what should the NBA know about this Thunder's rebuild that's coming up?
Gotcha. That's a good question. Yeah. So at this point, it's kind of just a waiting game at this moment. Obviously, we have more first round picks than even at this point. I've checked the numbers so many times and I still forget because it feels like, whoops, I forgot about that one from like 2020, like 2089 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so many assets, and everyone's always like, oh, like why do the Thunder need all these picks? Like they can't draft all these players. Like why? Like Shea's like got to leave because their timelines, whatever. I think people kind of forget what we can do with the picks. You don't have to draft players with picks. If say a couple years down, or say like next year, we're starting to show some promise and a young star. The name I always go to is Karl Anthony Towns for some reason. So he's also the example I'm just going to use here. Although Timberwolves, shout out to y'all, playing well. But say like a young star is like, I want out. And Oklahoma City goes to them and goes, hey, we'll trade you this young piece and 10 first round picks.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to get much of a better offer anywhere else.
Right.
So for a team in Oklahoma City, free agency really isn't an option. So you've got to build through the draft. And as we saw with the Paul George trade, you can also, you find someone disgruntled, you go out and make a move for them. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a disgruntled star, we can go out and grab him. Or say we go into this upcoming draft, we have the Clippers, who are now without Paul George and have a really tough schedule coming up. They could end up in the lottery. And then there's a potential for our lottery pick plus theirs. The lottery odds suck, as I learned, as you did not learn.
Hey, that we got it 1 year. We've had it bad plenty of years. I've seen plenty of dud drafts.
That's fair.
Believe me.
That's fair. I'm still just a little salty.
Hey, that's okay. I got Cade Cunningham. Keep being salty anyway.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, so as you see, like lottery odds suck. So to get as many assets as you can to optimize those opportunities, because now we will have potentially 2 chances at winning that lottery, even if they're low. That's still better odds than we would have, even though, like, say this past year with the Rockets pick, we had a chance to get 2 top 5 picks. It didn't work out, but there were still those better odds. So you've just got to do your best to get better odds. Say we get like a 4th overall pick and we want like the 3rd or the 2nd, and we've got this extra lottery pick from the Clippers, or even if it's not lottery, it's like fringe lottery. We can package those 2. We've got future assets to trade up in the draft. Like, even when you're a contending team, say down the line, we're contending in like 2025, and one of those Clippers picks, the Clippers are bad now, is like a top 10 pick, and we're a contending team at that point. There's just, what Sam Presti's kind of done is open up so many doors and possibilities, so it makes it kind of hard to like envision exactly how the rebuild's going to go, because one, he's insane and could just kind of deal guys whenever. But also just with all like the picks and stuff, it's kind of just a fun time to be a Thunder fan, because I never quite know, like, I don't quite know which direction we're heading. Obviously, the game plan is championship, but no one has ever like accumulated assets the way that Sam Presti has. Like, this is a record number of draft picks by a big margin.
Unprecedented. Absolutely unprecedented.
So combine that with like the young talent, like you mentioned, Shea is incredible. My favorite player. He's an all-star caliber guy, averaging like 26 points per game this month, and his 3 ball's not even falling. So when that starts falling, things are going to get even scarier. Dort is also an amazing player, like you mentioned. I think he should be in most improved player talks. He's turned into a 3-point shooter consistently. Plays great defense. Josh Giddey's playmaking. He has 1 pass every game where I go, how the hell did that just happen? At least one, that is. And you bring in other guys like Aaron Wiggins, who at the 55th overall pick has been impressing. Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who's been a top 10 rookie this season in the 2nd round. Trey Mann has like elite. He's already like kind of a really, really good space creator for himself offensively with some defensive flashes. There's just so much young talent and so much potential on this roster. Of course, probably not all of these guys will be here by the time we're contending, because that's just kind of the reality of the NBA. But just, it's real. It's, if you're not watching the Thunder, I know the 73-point loss will probably automatically turn some people off. But I recommend it. Like, we are, even if we're not good, we're a really fun young team. And it's kind of cool to watch like young teams play before they're even good. So like as they get better, you can kind of be like, oh, like that. I saw that progression from that guy. And that's been one of the most fun parts, because this is the first time that I've been a fan during a rebuild, because the Thunder have just been good, like since almost the beginning, outside of like that first season. And so to go through it, kind of one of the most fun parts is to watch these young guys. Like I think a good example is a guy like Poku, who has shown so many like incredible, like he's got to put it together consistently, but he's shown a ton of incredible flashes. And to see him like I'll see him make one play and be like, oh, that was a mistake. And then like a few games later, do the exact same thing, but kind of fix it, and just see that growth, see Dort go from this two-way player to dropping 30 in a game 7 against the Rockets to now becoming like a legit second option for us. It's just super fun to watch. And I think that's one of the more being a fan of a rebuilding team is super weird, because it's like you lose and you're like, oh, that's fine. Like typically I'm used to being really mad about losses. But so that's kind of weird. And like the whole lottery thing, that's more stressful than I ever imagined.
The fate of your franchise is literally decided by a ping pong ball.
Yep. Like if three ping pong balls bounce differently, like who knows what could happen, but it's just fun. I'm going along for the ride. And I'm excited to see where this rebuild goes. If I had to put kind of like a timeline on it, I would say maybe next year. I guess it always depends on, like you said, how the ping pong balls go. But with the way that Shea's playing, the way that Dort's progressing, I'm hopeful that next year, I think that next year this team could maybe be like kind of a play-in team, or like right around kind of that tier maybe. And then after that, who knows? Like, cause it depends, that's 2 drafts in the future now. So there's a lot of mystery to it, but I'm just kind of along for the ride. And I do think even though we're young, not very good, it's still a super fun watch. So check out some Thunder games if you have.
Yeah. And people just automatic, to your point, like people only want to like tune into the teams that like have the stars on them or who are winning. But like, listen, like I think, if you actually tune into a lot of these young teams and a lot of these rebuilding teams, I think there's a lot there that you can learn, and also just a lot of, listen, a lot of these guys play really hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as a fan who also is who's a fan of a team that is rebuilding. I mean, we've only won 5 games this year so far still. I think, I've been watching a decent amount of Thunder games because, I'm a fan of yours, but also because I'll see them playing against like the Suns, or I'll see them playing against like a more prominent team, and like just watching how these young guys match up. And like, Shea's like one of those guys, to your point, where like, I think just, the ceiling there is pretty darn high, especially with what they can do to build around them. Because to your point, it's really, the timeline is whenever it's right. You know what I mean? Like with all these guys, like, it's been shown the best way to rebuild is to like, have as many shots at getting the draft pick right as possible. Right. And they're going to have more shots at getting that right than any team in the history of the NBA, it seems like.
Yeah. So we better get it right.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, also to your point, you can also use those picks and go make your own fate. Right. I mean, that's the true beauty of it. So, I think even though obviously, you guys right now are towards the bottom of the Western Conference, 12-22, all things considered, is still pretty darn good for a rebuilding team, especially for where you guys are at. Poku, seeing the photos of him post game, like his post game fits and stuff, are some of my favorite things to see on the face of the planet. Walking meme, and I absolutely love it, but he can also hoop. And hey, thanks for Troy Weaver, by the way. Absolutely appreciate that.
Hey, Thunder legend.
Yeah. Hey, he was the one that wanted to draft Russell Westbrook. So, now we got that eye in Detroit. So, I'm pretty excited to have him. But yeah, no, I think the Thunder's future is just the future's so bright. It is insanely bright. Yeah. So
I'm super excited about it. It's all just a matter of, probably the toughest thing is like, when do you cash in, like the Phoenix Suns, I think did it perfectly. Like cashing in off their bubble momentum. They're like, we're going to go get Chris Paul and made the finals. You have like the Hawks, who are like, we're going to cash in, make these big free agent moves. And even the season before, like, we're going to trade for Clint Capella, cashed in, made an Eastern Conference Finals run. So I think that's
the Bulls, they cashed in. They went and got
They
Vucevic.
did, yeah. They got Vucevic, went out, signed DeRozan, brought in Lonzo, Alex Caruso, and bam, here they are.
Yep.
So it's always, that's always the question is like, when do we cash in? And I'm excited for that. That first, like because at some point we're going to trade for a star. It's going to happen at some point. And that's kind of cool to know that like at some point something cool is going to happen. I don't know when.
Yeah.
It probably won't be for a couple of years, but when it happens, I'll remember this. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I'm in the same spot where it's like, man, I'm excited to see when Detroit cashes in and we can finally be prominent in the playoff picture. Man, it's just, as fans of rebuilding teams, I think we're going to have some fun years to come. Hey, who knows? Hey, Cone, just imagine 5 years from now, we're talking about a Pistons Thunder finals. We got Cade versus Shea going off on ABC.
ESPN's burning down because it's a Pistons Thunder finals.
Dude, Stephen A. Smith would throw a riot. He'd quit his job on the spot because he doesn't get to go to Los Angeles.
Bro, it would be, man, I hope that happens. If that happens, we'll meet up at a game.
Oh, absolutely.
I will fly out to Detroit and we'll meet up.
Hey, who knows? We could both be covering it. We never know, man.
Hey, that's true. We'll see.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, speaking of bright futures, Cone, you have one, man. And dude, seriously, thank you so much for.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it,
dude. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at 3_Cone. You can find him on YouTube at 3Cone as well, and also the podcast of Brotherly Love on Twitter as well. Be on the lookout for that. December 9th, they posted the dead man coming out of the grave, so be on the lookout for that.
It's gonna be coming back soon. We're gonna get it back up and going. I'm excited about it.
Well, hey, if you're ever looking for a guest, man, I'd love to hop on.
100%, man. Yeah, I kind of want to. We had Nick on before it like kind of like fell apart after kind of just getting busy with my brother and I schedules. So I mean, I would love to have like a Pistons super team type episode where we bring y'all on. I feel like that'd be fun. So, I'll DM you at some point.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'll definitely be in touch. This has been a lot of fun, but hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much. Again, this is From Half Court each and every week. Me and my buddy Troy, whoever joins, gets to talk all things NBA basketball. So if you like that, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a positive review, and share with your friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean Half Court. And thank you so much for watching. And I will catch you next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe.